Harrod with us to talk about some of the foolishness of ecumenism and what that exactly means and what they're doing with Islam lately. So we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes, but I want to get back to what does civilization jihad mean? Because it's not something I created. It is not a term I made up. It is something that was written and created by the Muslim Brotherhood to describe their activities here in the United States and Canada. It comes from a document written in 1991 that describes basically their war here in the United States and Canada. And I'm just going to read a paragraph of that. It says, understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to the challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. But would the slackers and the mujahideen be equal? This is the insanity of what the Muslim Brotherhood wants for North America. We're going to talk just a little bit more about what the Muslim Brotherhood is a little later on as we get into what Mr. Harrod has written recently. Now, I asked him to join us. He wrote two outstanding articles that appeared in Jihad Watch and I'm sure in other forums also. The second one I just appeared today, and I just got a copy of it this afternoon. I'm really impressed with it. I can't really see some of these things at work, unfortunately. But his first article, wow. The link is up in the top. I'm just going to put it in the chat room again before I start to introduce everybody. So let me put that in the chat room, and then I'll introduce Andrew and bring him on. So let me tell you about who Andrew Harrod is. Andrew E. Harrod is a freelance researcher and a writer who holds a PhD from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and a JD from George Washington University Law School. He was admitted to the Virginia State Bar. He has published over 200 articles concerning various political and religious topics at places like the American Thinker, Breitbart, Daily Caller, Front Page Magazine, Gatestone Institute, Institute on Religion and Democracy, Investigative Project on Terrorism, Mercatornet, Religious Freedom Coalition, and World, among others. He is a fellow with the Lawfare Project, an organization combating the misuse of human rights laws against Western society. And I just want to say welcome, Andrew Harrod. Welcome to the show again.
Well, it's always great to be here with you. Thank you for having me back.
I'm so impressed with this. And we've just met in person and had a chance to glance. One of these days, I've just got to be able to sit down and pick your brain. We haven't had that opportunity yet because, wow, I've got something I'm working on that I would love to bounce on you a little bit later. So maybe I'll see what I can send you a email and show you what I'm working on. It's a mind blower. But Andrew, you wrote one incredible piece, and I just want to say thank you for working on it. The piece on the Quakers is just blowing my mind. You originally went to the Jewish, I should say it's Quaker place for a Jewish Voice for Peace program, and they were supposed to show two movies, right?
Well, yes, I went to the Friends Committee on National Legislation, as written about by me at Jihad Watch, and they're an office Quaker body from the Society of Friends. They're located on Capitol Hill, sort of near the Supreme Court and between Union Station on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And they hosted a film event showing 2 films on Gaza, 2 anti-Israel propaganda films for a local film group in the Washington, D.C. area called the Voices from the Holy Land, which is contains various local members of groups like Jewish Voice for Peace or American Muslims for Palestine, or also various local churches, a committee from the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, D.C., also from the Presbyterian Church, a local gathering of all sorts of very anti-Israel members. And they then presented these 2 anti-Israel propaganda films on Gaza at the Friends Committee on National Legislation on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C.
It's amazing. Now this is the way you describe this way this article starts. It kind of hit me, because I think of Quakers. I think of, well, these are the guys who are supposed to be peace lovers. They're supposed to be non-violent. And the way your article starts, it's like I'm sitting there kind of shocked, because aren't they supposed to be the peace-loving, non-violent people? But you describe the room that you entered as an Israel-hating audience. Were you surprised the Quaker group was that violent?
Well, if you know anything about the Quakers, as if you read the article at Jihad Watch by me, Andrew Harrod, on the Quakers at this event in Washington, D.C., contains various links to the articles noting that, the Quakers, like other denominations in the post-war era, have really gone trajectory left, a hard left veer, and that includes them really hating Israel as this imperialist, colonial, Western, capitalist entity. So here you see typified this really anti-Israel hatred of the Quakers, which has really become the norm among the Quakers and any such religious left groups.
Hold on. I'm sorry, Andrew. There's something, a news story that just happened that I've got to say something about. Don't normally break in. One of our people in the chat room just put in a story about the Boston area. There's been 20 gas explosions reported in Lawrence, Andover, North Andover, and they're now doing ordering evacuations of the area if you have natural gas in your home. Wow. That's a mind blower. So if anybody is currently in that area, please do leave. Oh my gosh, they have huge houses on fire down there. I hope to God this is not another jihad. Oh wow. Thank you for sharing that, Gary. He says he's communicating. North Andover police are telling anyone homes or businesses with gas or services in towns to evacuate. And right now it says 50 structures are on fire. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's mind-blowing. Sorry, Andrew. Wow. Yeah. I don't know if you think of Boston as pretty close to you, or North Andover pretty close to you, but you're in that megapolis area, I think. So wondering how close that is to you, but wow. I'm trying to get back to the article. Sorry about that. I just thought that'd be. I don't normally do that. This is the work that Andrew did in covering the Quaker piece. It's kind of mind-numbing, and I'm sorry for interrupting and giving that little public service announcement, but it really needed to be done. I think you were trying to tell us how their Quakers are working with basically the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, they're working with the Palestinians.
Well, this event would indicates that the Quakers, along with other leftists, I guess often you hear the term that sort of groups all these anti-Israel and leftist groups in what is called a red-green alliance of leftists and Islamist jihadist groups. And this is an example of that you have a very hard left Quaker group that is affiliated with other sort of hard left people who call themselves Christians against Israel that in turn are connected to groups like American Muslims for Palestine, which has always been advertised on the material for the Voices from the Holy Land Film Festival, that always every year they show all these anti-Israel films around the Washington, D.C. area.
So when you went there, I was trying to get back to my questions. Having this public service announcement in the middle tossed me a little bit, but I think it was really important to share. Okay. You talk about a woman from Jewish Voice for Peace. Now, is this a good organization, or is it Jewish?
Well, those are good questions. Jewish Voice for Peace is an organization that, among other organizations, has been banned by Israeli authorities from entering Israel. It's really a fringe group that has some Jews in it, and therefore opponents of the group like me talk about how the phrase has come up that Jewish Voice for Peace Jew-washes anti-Semitism. I mean, you get some really fringe left-wing Jews who really don't care about Judaism or Israel, and they sort of give their name to this group, which allows just any and all haters of Israel to join. And then they can say, oh, we're not anti-Semitic because, after all, look, some of my best friends are in Jewish Voice for Peace. So you have these leftist Jews here giving cover for all these haters of Israel and their anti-Semitism. And at this event, there are many of these Episcopalians from the Episcopal Diocese in Washington, D.C., who've noted in the past that they're members of Jewish Voice for Peace. This particular woman who spoke at the event was, I believe, from an Arab background. So, you wonder just how Jewish is this Jewish Voice for Peace. I mean, I've seen people from Georgetown University who are noted Israel haters tweeting out, like Nathan Lean, this author of this book, The Islamophobia Industry, tweeting out that he supports Jewish Voice for Peace and contribute to it, and talk about how it allows him to criticize Israel without being accused of being an anti-Semite because, after all, they're Jews and Jewish Voice for Peace. So that was one of the organizations represented at the event and in this Voices from the Holy Land Film Festival.
Voices from the Holy Land. Does this sound like I hear that mentioned maybe and in this context, and I keep thinking Holy Land Foundation trial. Wow.
Well, indeed, yes. Yeah, well, yeah, that sort of similarity comes up. I've gone to their events several times. They've come to know me well as one of their critics. I see them all the time, but you see these individuals all around town at any and all anti-Israel events.
Wow. They have a lot of events.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they would be able to do well here where I am, just because I don't think there's that many anti-Semitic groups here. Maybe there are. I'm not aware of it. I'm just mind blown. You talk about blood libel against Israel. What do you mean by that?
Well, often historically, the blood libel against Jews has been that this complete falsehood that Jews would take Christian children and kill them and use their blood to make matzo balls and for religious ceremonies. And throughout history, that often there are other anti-Semitic accusations made against Jews that they're somehow evil people who kill other people for no reason. In modern times, for example, there have been accusations that Israeli Jews, Israeli government harvests the organs of Palestinians and uses them for medical experiments. Or you can talk as well about a blood libel that in the 1967 Six-Day War, the Israelis deliberately attacked this U.S. Navy intelligence ship, the USS Liberty, although all evidence by the Israeli and American governments has shown that it was a mistaken identification attack, that the Israelis thought it was an Egyptian ship. So here in this case, at this event, I spoke about blood libels that in particular Tom Getman, who's from the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, D.C., is on this committee they have for Jerusalem. He's a real Israel hater, just really demonizes Israel, and is really anti-Semitic. He got up and talked about his experience at World Vision International, this international Christian charity, that long-standing Christian charity that perhaps many of you have heard of, that has, however, as the article notes, as other people have researched, has taken a real anti-Israel turn in recent decades. I mean, one of their co-workers, for example, in Gaza, was convicted by Israeli authorities for being a member of Hamas, and he diverted a lot of World Vision funds to Hamas. Tom Getman got up and talked about his experience running World Vision operations in these Palestinian territories, Gaza, and the West Bank and so forth, and said, well, he would go to World Vision and other non-government organization projects, and the Israelis would just deliberately target these projects, saying that, the Israeli Air Force, they just sort of maliciously kill civilians and civilian projects like schools or hospitals or whatever. Of course, he never mentioned that jihadist groups like Hamas, they consistently use a human shields policy of hiding their military installations within civilian structures like these United Nations UNRWA schools or hospitals or apartment buildings and so forth. So that's a blood libel, saying that the Israelis are not engaged in self-defense, but they're just sort of willfully killing civilians.
I think it's interesting. You wrote the considerable dangers of Hamas rockets as well as terror tunnels. People, you got to remember that they're digging these all the time, using children to do this. And more recently, fire kites must cause considerable loss of sleep among Israelis. Yet Kobe focused only on their necessities to quickly take over to cover in bomb shelters. Oh, yeah, I would bomb the hell out of anybody who was trying to kill me if I had that power. I mean, come on.
The individual in the article you mentioned, James Kobe, he actually was lead a group to ban landmines around the world in the late 1990s, and the group received a Nobel Prize. So he shared in the honor of receiving that Nobel Peace Prize. But he's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's gone to the Gaza Strip to he talked about a recent trip he made there to engage in charitable orthopedic surgery for any injuries of people in the Gaza Strip, and he complained about, the last night I was there, the Israeli Air Force dropped some 90 bombs in 6 hours on the Gaza Strip, and it was hard to sleep. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if it's hard to sleep for any of these Israelis who are constantly getting attacked by Israeli rockets or now Israeli fire kites, or you have to worry about terror tunnels, that they have to be able to run within a moment's notice and to say bomb shelters or to call for help to fight against a terrorist attack. So I wonder what sort of sleep they're losing, right?
It's like he had one mindset. I mean, this is the thing that they for some reason, no matter what we do, the leftist Islamist mindset can't get beyond the fact that the Jews don't initiate these things. They retaliate to protect their own people. Unfortunately, they're forced to retaliate.
Indeed, many people in America and elsewhere, when I'm visiting Israel, and I've talked with other Americans who have been there with me, or people from around the world, they say, look, what other country would tolerate such attacks on itself? And, the obvious analogy with Americans would be like, what if we got rocket attacks out of Mexico? What would we do to stop that? I'm sure there would just be, people demanding immediate response. And I've seen on Facebook, Israeli friends of mine, they've posted like pictures of damages in Israel and saying, look, we can't, you can't expect just normal people to go about their lives when you have rockets coming down on their parking lots or whatever and their homes, and people have got to run for cover.
This is just sad. And I think what's important here is you name a group that I actually have a problem with when I was doing work as an expert witness. You name World Vision. And World Vision does a lot of promotion of refugee programs. And I personally don't trust them at all. But they get millions and millions of dollars from the government. So, yeah. And they were in on this too? Wow.
Well, Tom Gedman, who was at the meeting, was a senior World Vision official. And as my friend Luke Moon has written at the Power magazine online, your World Vision, though, when it comes to Israel, they've really just taken an anti-Israel, real Israel-hating position. And in part, it's due a large measure to Tom Gedman, who's a real obsessive Israel hater. He's really an anti-Semite. I mean, if you read the article I wrote about the Quakers at Jihad Watch, and as well, I've written about him a lot of times because I've come across him so many times in Washington, D.C., he's just really obsessed with Israel, just really hates Israel, and is really anti-Semitic. I mean, he just demonizes Israel all the time, and it's not any objective criticism. It's he's just really it's just really anti-Semitism, and he hates Jews, and he's got a thing for Jews, and he's going after them.
And this is an organization. Isn't this the organization that used to advertise on TV as well? I mean, send money to support people. Holy cow! I mean, unfortunately, we need to get this information out. I mean, if the head of their organization is going to be anti-Semitic, nobody should give them a penny.
Well, I think it would make you consider that maybe you might want to, if World Vision has this problem with Israel, irrespective of whatever else World Vision does around the world, you might, want to consider giving some other organizations. I mean, there's always, for example, Franklin Graham's Samaritan Purse. I mean, you're not going to have any anti-Israel problems with him or something. I mean, there are lots of good organizations out there, for that matter, the Red Cross or, Habitat for Humanity or whatever. So you might very well, I think you might want to consider looking at other organizations until World Vision can clean up its act with Israel and other issues.
That's great advice. Wow. I did want to get into your other article. I wish I had read it earlier this morning. I caught this when I got home, and I'm like, wow. He wrote an article called, which I'm going to put in the chat room real quick, Disgraced Cardinal praised ISNA, which is the Islamic Society of North America, and, quote, true Islam. Can you tell us why he was disgraced to start with? Because not being Catholic, I really don't know that story.
Well, I'm also not personally Catholic, although I was told as far back as 2005 from my Anglican priest who had a lot of contacts with Catholics and had known Theodore McCarrick, of evidence noted by him that, Theodore McCarrick really is a homosexual, and was, conducting various liaisons with other Catholic seminarians or clergy. So even back, I wonder why no one caught on to Theodore McCarrick in recent years, because I had that evidence way back in 2005 that just by comment to me by a dependable source that this guy is really kind of shaky. But he's in recent months, information has come out about his abuse of seminarians, his sexual harassment, or indeed sexual assault, I guess you'd say, his coercement of seminarians into having sex with him. I've come across in my research of him in the past that there have been individuals investigating sexual abuse cases in the Catholic Church and looking into various legal settlements that people have had, that apparently he had some legal settlements with individuals also way back in 2005. And you can go online to a website run by a guy named Richard Sipe, S-I-P-E, and he had some evidence, really lurid details from various legal documents, from legal settlements going back to 2005. But it's now come out that a lot of abuse allegations, and then there have been other allegations of such homosexual abuse, sexual harassment from such Catholic cardinals and clergy in the Catholic Church. And so it's become a real scandal in the Catholic Church involving former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. And that prompted me to write an article about him, because I've come across Theodore McCarrick numerous times in the Washington, D.C. area in my covering of events on Islam. And he's always been kind of a point man for the Catholic Church under the papacy of Pope Francis, who's been very trying to, some would say, Islam pandering, or trying to have friendly relations with Muslims, constantly trying to emphasize good relations, how peaceful Islam is, not criticizing Islam and so forth. And Father Cardinal McCarrick here in Washington, D.C. and beyond has often been a key figure promoting that kind of line of thought. And so I've seen him at numerous events, heard him speak, and I wrote this article about his past, and in particular about his comments he gave to a conference by the Islamic Society of North America in 2015 here in Northern Virginia and the Washington, D.C. area, where he just went on about how wonderful Islam was, how peaceful it was, how benign it was. And looking into the past relations of this fallen individual concerning Islam.
Well, I'm just going to read one of your quotes from McCarrick. It says, he had said, "I have been privileged to know ISNA for 20 years and to see the growth and development of this extraordinary instrument of understanding, instrument of cooperation, and instrument of beauty." Wow. I mean, these are the unindicted co-conspirators.
Right, yeah. I mean, ISNA is one of these organizations that, anyone studying these issues like the Council on American Islamic Relations and so forth, it's a Muslim Brotherhood-derived organization and just has a long history going up to the present day of its most recent conference in this year in 2018 of just radicals, anti-American, anti-Israel, hateful speakers, people who advocate all these, Sharia law, like death to homosexuals, like, say, Cardinal McCarrick, hatred of Israel, hatred of America, pro-jihad, and so forth. And the ISNA was also then involved in this 2007 Holy Land Foundation terrorism financing trial, which you mentioned. So, you wonder why anyone with any, knowledge of such an organization would want to speak to it and praise it in such manner.
The thing that gets me when I hear about people claiming to be Christian or claiming to be ecumenical or something like that, wanting to praise one of these organizations, but the information is out there that exposes them. It's out there. I mean, there is tons of information out there. It's easily accessible. How can you not? I mean, you got to have blinders on. This is the stuff that really gets me. I want to read one other thing you got in here that just kind of blows my mind. To think that anybody who would call himself Christian or would be so missing the boat. I mean, you run into these people, but when there's of an authority figure, you would think they'd be aware. But this guy, this is the part that this got me upset. By contrast, McCarrick noted. This is what Andrew Harrod wrote. By contrast, McCarrick noted how he has talked about around the world about a 2005 fatwa from ISNA's Fiqh Council of North America against terrorism. You want to tell them a little about that one?
Well, yes, this was a 2005 fatwa or Islamic legal opinion from the Fiqh Council of North America, which is an affiliate of ISNA. It was it grew out of ISNA, and it's this council that's supposed to give Islamic legal opinions for Muslims in the United States on issues of interpreting Islamic doctrine, Islamic law. This fatwa was supposed to say that it condemns terrorism, and McCarrick said, "Oh, this is so wonderful." And he talked about, I've just constantly praised this fatwa and gone around the world, and I've heard him praise it before at events around Washington D.C., like at Georgetown University and so forth. But as other people like Robert Spencer of Jihad Watch have analyzed, or the father of Daniel Pearl, this Jewish American journalist who was beheaded by jihadists in Pakistan in 2002, they've noted that the holes in this fatwa that, for example, it doesn't condemn specific groups, like it doesn't specifically mention like Al-Qaeda or Hamas or Hezbollah, so it kind of leaves you wondering, well, okay, who are the Muslim terrorists out there that we need to condemn? And Robert Spencer in particular notes that terms such as civilian or innocent lives are hotly debated among Muslims around the world as to just who is a civilian or what is an innocent life. I mean, you have Islamic doctrine saying that, just anyone who's opposing Islam or supporting some group or nation that's fighting against Muslims is a combatant. Or, Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, this Muslim Brotherhood cleric in Qatar, who said that, there are no civilians in Israel because, after all, everyone, all adults serve in the military, and they're all reservists, and so therefore, they're all potential combatants, so just kill them all, right? So what's a question of who's a civilian or what's an innocent life? I mean, there's Anjem Choudhury, this radical jihad supporting guy in the United Kingdom, is said anyone who opposes Islam, supports any sort of war against Islam is not a civilian. So therefore, right, anyone in the United States and the World Trade Center, or anyone in the United Kingdom is a combatant. Just spread terror among them and kill them all, and just frighten that country away from opposing Islam. So it's such a thought why, unlike Cardinal McCarrick's dreams of this being some sort of glorious statement, it doesn't actually really say much from what you would think at first glance. It's a whole lot more shallower than what you might want.
I think it's hilarious because they talk about the term, when they use the term innocent, it's not what people think. Innocent to a Muslim means you're a Muslim. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you were walking down the street and you shouldn't have been attacked. Oh, no. It simply means Muslim to the Muslims. And that is something, when they put that term in anything, you have to stop and listen. And we know this because we've had several, like Anjem Choudhury talks about it. And it's just mind-numbing. So many of us don't pay attention. I want to say thank you for pointing that piece out earlier. That's just, I'm glad I knew about the 2005 thing, but there's even more. I mean, you talk about his appearance and his pandering around with George. Even he was associating with Georgetown University's Saudi-funded Prince Alawad bin Talal Center. Holy cow. And he gets to know John as
a longtime friend of Georgetown and the whole gang over there at this Prince Alawad bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding with Professor John Esposito and this up and coming person there, Jordan Denari Duffner, and I mean they all loved McCarrick over there and were in really tight with him. So he was well known over there.
I didn't realize that. So they were getting. So in some sense, the Catholic Church was basically coming over to them and saying, "Hey, can we help you out in some way, or doing something, trying to work with them?" That's just, to me, he's a cardinal. He's wow. That's just kind of mind numbing.
Well, it's basically following in this Pope Francis line of kind of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. I mean, hear no jihad, speak no jihad, see no jihad. It's just kind of everything in Islam is fine, and any sort of violence that you might associate with Islam is just merely because of some criminal extremists and so forth. And so, you should never condemn the faith or so forth. That's been sort of a kind of the party line of Pope Francis and the Vatican, the leaders in recent years, as opposed to, say, John Paul II or Pope Benedict XVI, who had a much more critical view of things. But Pope Francis has taken this very, sort of interfaith approach and emphasized Islam as a fellow faith and being benign and promoting human dignity.
I guess when I look at this, I'm still trying to figure out, what does Pope Francis get out of this? What did McCarrick get out of this? I mean, why would you go back and keep doing this? Do you come up with anything? I'm sure you must have asked the question.
Well, those are good questions. I think that, thinking of these people at Georgetown, like John Esposito or Jordan Denari Duffner, and also McCarrick, it seems to come from a very sort of leftist, humanist view, and in many ways it really isn't Christian. I mean, it dismisses any sort of acknowledgement of human evil and how people can be truly fallen, and indeed how cultures can be fallen, entire belief systems can be really flawed and wrong. I mean, indeed, Christianity advocates that, well, we live with a sinful humanity, a fallen world, and you really only have sort of this brief light of God in his revelation. I mean, first through the Jewish people, this light unto the nations, his chosen people, and then, of course, the very light, this Jewish Messiah of Jesus. And that in order to turn away from human darkness, human sin, you really have to look to those teachings of God and the Bible. So it's a complete rejection of any sort of multicultural interfaith idea that says that, well, all faiths are equally good, and we all have the same basic idea of human dignity and so forth. And indeed, if you look at Islamic supremacist doctrines of jihad and Sharia, there's a clear repudiation of any such universal idea of human dignity. But modern leftist progressive thinking is that, humanity is just sort of inherently good, and we don't need any particular faith; they're all equal. And a lot of that thinking is really kind of rubbed off on or influenced even leaders, say, in the Catholic Church. And even they have a really optimistic vision, or they want to be hopeful. I mean, they want to be optimistic towards the world. You can understand that. I mean, Christianity certainly teaches you to love other people and to be good towards other people, to hope for the best. But of course, basic Christian message is that we live in a fallen world, and so you always have to be cautious and critical, and you have to understand that ultimately there are differences in belief systems. I mean, bad ideas have bad consequences. Not all ideas are the same. But people at Georgetown University or like Cardinal McCarrick, they really seem to want to believe that there's just sort of an inherent goodness to all people, and so we don't have to really worry about any sort of particular differences of doctrine of Islam or Christianity. So it's very kind of sloppy thinking.
I think I look at what when I see ecumenism, I've seen so many problems with it. I mean, back in the 80s, we were concerned that they were bringing Wiccans into the ecumenical groups.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Satanists. And is there a limit? Apparently not. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you have to draw a line somewhere, and certainly Christianity would proclaim that there is an absolute truth. I mean, Jesus proclaims that he's absolute truth. He is the truth, and I mean, he is indeed God, a person in a triune God, and we're all going to go before judgment before that triune God. So it's not just all relative. There is indeed truth and falsehood, and Satan is the father of lies. And certainly in the Jewish scriptures, God punishes the Jews when they turn away from his teaching, from his revelation, and they no longer want to follow him. They just want to follow, say, whatever pagan beliefs are around them. So, the Bible certainly does not proclaim that you can just believe whatever you want and God's not going to care. I mean, there simply is good and bad, right and wrong, truth and falsehood. So it is indeed a distortion of Christian faith to not make any such distinctions and to critically engage with other people and their belief systems.
There's such a danger for people who aren't, I would say, established in their own faith. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that if you're, let's pick on a Buddhist. If you're not established in your faith, what I mean by established, you're not grown up enough to really know what you believe, to know where your beliefs come from. Then you're very susceptible to anybody else talking about their faith. I think that you should learn more about your faith before you start listening to other things. Now, as a Christian, I think that you should be learning all about your faith, get established in it, learn a lot, pick up that Bible and read it, and learn what it really says. But I wouldn't recommend for the person who has really not much clue. They just accepted Christ to go start engaging in conversations with, let's say, Muslims or somebody else, because
Mm-hmm.
you really haven't learned what your faith stands on. And I think this is what I think of these people who engage in those conversations. I'd say 9 times out of 10 they have a little bit of knowledge of Jesus, a little bit of knowledge of Bible, and then they have a whole lot of cluelessness. So they do this and see nothing wrong, and that stuff scares me. But I mean, I've been watching this now, holy cow, 30 years. I mean, I've been watching this since I was a kid. ecumenism. I still remember the one that still hit me. I don't know if you remember this one. About 1981, 82, the World Council of Churches gave a payment to an organization, I believe it was in Africa, after they killed Christians.
Uh-huh.
And I remember it so because I had been invited to go. I got an invite to go join them as a teenager. Now I was, I had represented the United Methodist Church up almost all the way to the bigger groups, and I was loving all that stuff, but I could not. I mean, I got the invite to go. It would have been all the way to the other side of the country up in Canada, but I couldn't get myself to go because I would be, even showing up with a group, I would be supporting a payoff to people who kill Christians, and that's how I felt about it. So be careful. I'm just saying, people, be careful. Ecumenism is very, very dangerous. It's not good. I haven't found it to be good for anybody, but I have yet to see something.
Daniel Greenfeld, this American-Israeli Jew who writes for Front Page Magazine at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, he had a very good piece I found interesting that he talked about the modern interfaith movement. The whole thesis of it is sort of, truth doesn't exist. Truth is all relative. So, Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha, whatever, same difference, who cares? So there's no real truth until. Therefore, then interfaith discussion is not based on any sort of critical discussion, debate, and to try to find what is true, but it's really just based upon the idea of how we can all get along in the here and now. Okay, so it's just kind of this idea of getting to know each other, and we all kind of find out that we're all kind of the same and want the same things, and we sing Kumbaya and we have nice meals together, and we all get happy together. And I've seen that at lots of events around Washington, D.C. and so forth. So the fundamental assumption is that, we just don't have to really care about what's true or false. We just got to sort of try to get to know each other and be friends and get along. So, you have to take a different approach and say, no, look, they're really critical ideas we have to look at here. And so you really need an informed knowledge that if you go to any such interfaith meeting, you can ask critical questions about any sort of idea or doctrines discussed, and that you don't just sort of sit there and smile and have no idea about what problems there might be that a Muslim Islamic doctrine might have, or Buddhist doctrine might have, or Church of Latter-day Saints or whatever. But you can really say, hey, look, I think that there's a particular issue there. I think that's wrong. I don't accept that, and so forth, and to really engage in an intelligent manner and not just simply give each other hugs and smile at each other.
Well, Andrew, I want to say thank you for joining us. You've been a joy to have with us as usual. Oh my gosh, you're a wealth of knowledge. Please don't stop all this work that you're doing. It's needed. We need people like you out there getting this truth out. Please tell everybody how they can follow your work and where they can get in touch with you.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, for example, at AE Harrod. My name is Harrod, like the department store in London, Harrod. You can also follow me on Facebook at Andrew Harrod. You can simply follow me at various outlets like Jihad Watch, where I regularly write, or I'm a Campus Watch fellow for the Middle East Forum. If you simply Google my name, Andrew Harrod, again, like the department store in London, Harrod, you'll see me pop up everywhere, and you can go to my Twitter account there. I regularly tweet out. You can follow me there, or get me on Facebook, you'll find me at American Thinker, Breitbart, Investigative Project on Terrorism, Institute of Religion and Democracy, Front Page Magazine, and so forth. So, but perhaps best you can get me on Twitter or at Facebook, and just go look for Andrew Harrod or AE Harrod, and I'll constantly tweet out my articles, and you can keep up on my latest writings.
And please keep sending them to me, too, because if I miss them, I miss something good. Thank you again. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll have to have you back again soon.
Oh, I always enjoy being here. Great talking with you. See you again, Paul.
God bless.